Come in. Oh,
Hello, Joseph, is it?
hi, Dr. Zapata. Yes, Joe. How are you?
I'm well. What seems to be the problem, Joe?
Well, I'm having difficulty drawing from imagination.
Oh, Joseph, just so you know, that's totally normal. Why don't you tell me a little more about your problem? Is it that you can only draw from imagination if you're completely alone?
Doc, I can't ever draw from imagination.
What about if you're completely relaxed?
When I'm totally relaxed, I can't imagine a thing.
I see. Joseph, it's important to know that even with severe cases like this, there's always hope. I can prescribe an experimental therapy called Form from Imagination.
Form from imagination?
It's early days, but clinical trials are extremely promising. Why don't you try this for 6 months and then check back in with me?
Okay, I'll do whatever it takes. Did you just draw this?
Oh yeah.
Wow, it's amazing. Hey, Doc, do you ever have trouble drawing from imagination?
Oh no.
You wouldn't. I mean, you drew this.
That's right.
Wow.
Form from Imagination is an experimental therapy and is not yet approved for use by the FDA. Do not use Form from Imagination if you are already taking any prescriptions for drawing from reference, working side size, or tracing photos you didn't even take. Stop taking Form from Imagination if you experience any of these side effects: loss of interest in your personal projects, megalomaniacal self-confidence, hallucinations, unless they're the kind you're hoping for, drawing better than Steven Zapata, or feelings that purchasing the course was enough and you don't really need to do the exercises. Call your doctor if you have stiff gestures, flat forms, or boring ideas to address a possible life-threatening condition. Full sketchbooks have been reported with Form from Imagination and medicines like it. Other risks include long-term art careers, too many clients, and being worth more than you're charging for. Call your doctor today and ask about Form from Imagination. All right. We are here. Icebergs at the ready. Window open, tea in hand, microphone running. Testing audio level. Test, that looks good. That sound good to everybody? I sound loud enough? I'm gonna open my blinds a little bit more. Give me 1 second. Let the day in a little more. Hello to Johnny Pearson, the new terrain, Tet, Soko, Leosaurus, Rex, Gabuda, Ichamuda, Fish Flops, Aki, Aerosol Doll, Froggy, Roundbrush, Tet, and Soko. Let's see if I move this a little closer. And I got something in the way. Mata Chikoya, what up? What up? What up? Aki says, yes, I had a great day and I get a Steven stream in the evening. That's awesome. Love to hear it. We contribute to great days around here. Now it's too close. Now it's too close. Now it's a little too close. Aki, I think I was just answering your Patreon Q&A question yesterday. Soko says, you look rugged and fabulous today. So old. Finally. Finally. People are always telling me I look too youthful. Finally, I look my age. Let me just feel it. Oh, yeah. Nice and run down, baby. So tired. Actually, when I look inside, there's a glowing light and endless warmth. What's that about? I'm poking at some bergs for my project today. Some bergs. Is that really the, I mean, I just sketched that shape right before stream started. Let's not get hooked on that. Squish. Tall. Hello, Anthony Walker. Hello, Tet. Oh, I already said hi to Tet. Hello, Renola Dominguez. Doroboro81, hello. Joseph T, who has retracted his message. Already with the retractions. Getting up to antics, they are. Just designing this with one middle gray value for now. Trying to keep my mind focused on finding base arrangements that I actually like. I don't really do music while I work anymore. I hope that doesn't drive you guys crazy. A few times in the past, I've played music for you all while I'm not listening to anything, but I don't know, something about that feels Something about that feels odd. Like, why am I impinging my musical taste on you when I'm not listening to the same thing? I'd been drawing these in sort of scenes before. Over here you can see some of them. So I have some ideas of like the scale and kind of weird directions that I want to go and the sense of grandeur and stuff like that, but I wanted to just look at them in elevation as well and just look at the base arrangements. Really mostly to just find what way is fun for me to do the act of shaping the ice. As always, I'm just looking for the fun. Let's put Nightcore in the background. Is Nightcore a genre or is Nightcore a artist? Or is Nightcore just the quiet chittering of crickets on a warm summer night? It's high-pitch anime techno or something. Jesus. I can feel it in my bones just hearing the description. Art Dad says, my wife just told me she wants to learn how to draw. Besides the usual brunette beginners videos, got any other learning resources, suggestions for someone who would be starting from scratch? You know, it really depends what their taste is. I think, so I think the most important thing for someone who's really starting from scratch, like they really haven't spent much time drawing at all. And maybe maybe this viewpoint is too biased from the position of someone who's been teaching for a long time. But I think the most important thing is to nurture the raw enjoyment first. I think that you don't, seeing as how they have not drawn before, they don't actually know what their appetite is for instruction, and they don't know what their reaction and sort of temperamental stance to instruction is going to be. Even if a teacher is coming from the right place, if the book that this person looks at or the videos that they watch does not make very clear that drawing is supposed to be deeply enjoyable and personal from the beginning, then it's very easy to, because that gets left out, it's very easy for someone to just sort of believe they're under some sort of obligation to learn all of this stuff that is being discussed in the teaching. Like, oh, well, I have to get good at figure drawing. Oh, well, I have to figure out perspective. You know, I'm obligated to make pictures that look such and such a way. And I think that for most beginners, that ultimately is what makes them drop it, is that the practice gets too burdened before a basis of raw enjoyment has been created. It gets too burdened with instruction. So in that sense, any instruction will do as long as it's sort of balanced. And from that viewpoint, there's a genre of instructional material that within like people who are practicing a lot and getting really deep into drawing instruction and things like that, there's a genre of like books, for example, that people tend to make fun of because they're like too specific, right? It's like How to Draw Horses or something like that. From this context, those books might be exactly what somebody needs at the beginning, because it is connecting technique and instruction with what actually excites them and what makes them continue to love drawing. So, you know, an intermediate artist, someone who has, you know, realized how deep the rabbit hole goes with draftsmanship and is really idolizing people like John Singer Sargent or something like that. A book like How to Draw Horses, unless it's, you know, written by Alfred Munnings or something like that, which I don't think he drew a horse drawing book. It's just not going to do that much for them because they're concerned with more foundational things. But early on in the learning, that could be the perfect thing, depending on the person. Monkey Juice says, greetings, Stephen. Glad I got to catch your stream. Hope you and all the people in the chat have an enjoyable art session. Thank you so much. You know, drawing is just supposed to be, it's supposed to be really fun to do the whole time, you know? Or not the whole time in a sitting, but I mean like at every stage of development. You know, you're supposed to be having, the majority of your time should be spent really enjoying drawing. So someone needs to sort of anchor in that early on. Iolos says, I finally managed to catch a godly stream. Isn't the meaning of life then? If this isn't the meaning of life, then what is? No, you got it. This is it right here. You found it. You found the top of the spiritual mountaintop right here on this stream, baby. I would also think nurturing one's curiosity with learning art into excitement is even more essential for those who have ADHD. Yeah, I would think so. And it's just, I do think it's just essential for everybody. I mean, for some people, it's going to come more naturally than others. But yeah, for sure, if you have some sort of extra consideration like ADHD, you may need to be even more mindful of it. But I think it's absolutely essential for everybody. And if you've never gone in there and tuned the knobs on it, then it's almost inevitable that you're sort of missing something there. Showed my wife this. You're the best, Steven. No problem, Art Dad. Fear says, hey-oh, hey-oh. Roundbrush says, how can that be true? There is no way it's always fun, especially when you are trying to push yourself or solve design problems. Yes, it is. You need to investigate that. You need to investigate what story, what narrative, what conception of your selfhood and of yourself, and what narratives and stories about the practice and, whatever goals you may have, going towards an art career or something like that. You need to investigate where those models came from, where those concepts came from. And when you find the little hard seeds that are like what you just said, this is why it couldn't possibly be fun the whole time, because A, B, C, D, and when I'm doing this and this and this, that's going to hurt and all that. And just, where'd you get that? Who told you that? Did anyone? Did you just make it up? Yeah, you probably just made it up. And do the work to remove those assumptions, which become blockages, and see what happens. Now, yeah, it's not, like I said, it's not going to be fun all the time. Nothing is whatever it is all the time, right? But most of the time, it should be fun. Yeah, and by most, I mean 80 to 90% of your time doing it should be enjoyable and fun. You can do difficult things like problem solving and designing while experiencing them as easeful and pleasant, and they can be fun. Solving problems is sort of inherently enjoyable as long as you're not, adding all of these extra constructs, Brioche says, I think Cynics is great about keeping it fun. So if you haven't, definitely look up Sinus Designs. Cynics is great. That reminds me, I gotta hit Robert up because I gotta hit Cynics up because I had intended to do a video with him about meditation, just talk to him about meditation for a while, and it just fell onto the back burner. We were talking about that when we were hanging out at Lightbox last year. Stephen, I feel like I never study, but I also wonder if I just don't study in the traditional sense, which is to say I'm learning, but it doesn't look like boxmen or perspective grids. Is that real, or am I not eating my vegetables? I feel like I never study, but I also wonder if I just don't study in the traditional. I think so you're wondering if you're not studying in the traditional sense, are you still getting better? Can you still learn? The answer is absolutely. Absolutely. Now you can't, all right, here's the main thing most people need to hear in this situation that they don't seem to understand, or that no one has told them, is that no artist is under any obligation to learn anything. I can't believe people want to fight me about that. They just aren't. You don't need to learn figure drawing, anatomy, perspective, color, values, shapes, any of the other ingredients of the elements of art and the principles of design that people count as the fundamentals, right? I think they're nice to learn. I've enjoyed learning them, right? But the idea that you are obligated to do so is ridiculous, and it's just a waste of time. You should, it's a good idea to learn the ones that are relevant for the kind of art that you want to make. That's a good idea, but you are not under any obligation whatsoever. That said, you can't, or you shouldn't, sort of have unrealistic expectations around that. Like, it's unrealistic to think that while never learning about technical perspective drafting, that you will somehow magically come to draw as if you know technical perspective drafting. It's just like, that's never going to happen. You can arrive at an intuitive sort of sense of perspective, and you can take that really far without ever learning technical drafting. I mean, just knowing that parallel lines converge to the same vanishing point on the horizon is that will take you extremely far in perspective if you stick with it. But that will have that will never feel like fully technical or accurate, right? You've never looked at what you need to understand to get that. But beyond that, no, there's no obligation. Just learn the things that are relevant for you, and don't have unrealistic expectations. But honestly, at this point, at least based on the conversations that I have with a lot of students, and based on sort of the energy of our world right now, just the zeitgeist of culture, at this point, you could probably consider having fun a fundamental that most beginners need to develop. Most people actually hugely struggle with that. So. If thinking too much about studying and technical exercises is distracting you from focusing on the fun, then why don't you just consider all that time I am working on the fundamental of enjoying myself while I work. Philosophy, psychology, mothers, Nerdy's Bird. If you're learning to draw from imagination, is it more effective to do it while also studying, or to do it alone and you will eventually get it? I think both together is probably optimal, but if you mean studying, from that framing, I take it you mean, when you say studying, you mean studying from reference as opposed to doing work from imagination. I think that they inform each other, and if you have the time, which I think you can find the time, certainly, try to do both Try to structure it so that you do both regularly in your practice. A common breakup that I advise people to do is just split it 50-50 until you get a better grip on what you exactly want. Like if you have 2 hours a day, do 1 hour working from imagination. That builds the fun, lets you focus on your main goal. Since you do it first, it'll get your best energy. And at the end of that hour, you will see where you failed. And then spend the next hour working from reference, studying. Hopefully, if you can bring yourself to do it, study the thing that went wrong in your imagination drawing. So if the main thing that you are unsatisfied with in your imagination drawing from earlier in that session is that the pose came out stiff, go do some gesture studies for the next hour. And then stop, because at the end of that hour of studying gesture, you will have built excitement, and you will often have this idea of, oh, I know exactly how to fix my imagination drawing now, right? And, you know, over the years, I realized that that's maybe a bit optimistic, but the excitement there is very wholesome and very useful. So if you know you only have 2 hours for that day, that's a good place to stop, because then you can nurture that excitement as you go off and, you know, go to work or, you know, prepare for bed or whatever. And then the next day, when you sit down to do your 2 hour session again, and you're going to start with imagination work, you have that exciting little seed right off the bat to know where to begin and what you're trying to do better. And then you just repeat that virtuous cycle over and over and over again. My tablet is really starting to get a squeaky surface. I wonder if that's actually the screen that I'm finally wearing off, like the paper-like surface, or if that's just my nib. My nib doesn't look bad though. Steven, are you a Leo? I'm not sure what I am. It depends. What am I? Well, you all probably know a bunch about the zodiac. I was born on the summer solstice on June 21st. So that's what I think most people say. I'm some sort of edge case Cancer or something like that, which just sounds like an insult. Merlix2 says, hello, thanks for starting using metric system in your videos. Did I do that? I don't think so. Maybe my editor wrote translated some measurement that I mentioned into centimeters. Putting the fun in fundamentals is so important. You're god dang right it is. Steven, favorite current snack? I have a sweet tooth. I'm just, anything sweet is a real problem. You can't even really, do people even think of those as snacks? Like, to me, snack feels like, most people mean that in an inherently salty kind of way. My favorite salty snack is potato chips, but I don't keep them in the house anymore because I'll eat them all. So pretzels are good. I don't have any in the house right now. I did just finish a bag of gummy bears last night though. Banana bread talk. Love a good banana bread. Johnny Belmont says, I agree, but it's hella good to learn shapes and values. It is. I said that. I always uphold that. It's a good idea, but no one's under any obligation to do so. You just aren't. And because you're under no obligation, that's just another way that we decondition the assumption or the sort of beginning intuitive stance that we are not allowed to enjoy our art until it looks like the work of our heroes, you know? Peter says, what's your relationship with drugs and drawing? I've never, it doesn't do anything for me personally. I find base drawing to be enough of an altered state of consciousness. And I don't know, I just have my relationship with it works like that. I find if I'm drunk or high or anything like that, those feelings only distract me from actually drawing. I'm thinking more about those states than I am drawing. And then most of the time I just wind up not drawing. I'll go off and look at a plant or something. Where did this surly looking man put Stephen? Happy, unhaired, unbearded Stephen is gone. Now there's only surly, bearded Stephen. Johnny Pearson is teaching himself the cosmology of Dungeons and Dragons. The cosmology of it. The gods and deities of Dungeons and Dragons. Dagos and Drugugos. Peter says, thank you for answering, Stephen. Greatly appreciate everything you make. I've been religiously watching your drawing meditations and it has really changed my life. So thank you. Really. Oh, that's very, very kind of you to say. And I'm happy to help. I'm glad that you have found them useful. Finished all of them multiple times in like the span of 2 weeks. That's awesome. That's what they're there for, baby. I'm so glad that they helped you. To Stephen, do you know any fellow artists? I think that might be an incomplete message. Oh, there it goes. It got retracted. Hello, Atale. Is Steven Zapata an Apple user? Not right now. I'm working on PC right now. I prefer Apple. Wow. Anybody else think it was weird that my Photoshop, well, what was it really Photoshop? My computer, my PC, just decided to black screen my drawing tablet and then tell me there was an error as soon as I said that I prefer Apple? I do prefer Apple, but I had to switch to PC because I do so much recording and streaming now. And I just, for all of the benefits and compatibility that they have, I just needed to start running a independent NVIDIA card. So I'm currently on PC. If that need were to ever change or anything like that, then I would go back to Apple. Shady on Fire says, Steven, do you know about any fellow artists that are all over the place, different mediums, different subjects and industries, but still pulled it off career-wise? That are really all over the place. Different mediums, different subjects and industries. Well, I know a lot of artists. I can't say I know anyone who the whole scope of that is their career. I mean, in a sense, you could almost say someone like me or other people who do YouTube stuff, like YouTube now and doing art publicly is a big part of my career. And I do whatever I want, right? I change mediums, subjects, I do projects, just whatever. I just do whatever the hell I want. And it's a big part of my livelihood, but it's not how I make my money. Like I don't make my money off of these streams or something like that. I make my money off of teaching, and these things will pull people towards teaching just naturally, right? If that's not what you're talking about, if you're talking about the work being your career, I can't say I know anyone who the whole spread is their career. I know lots of people who were like that and inclined towards that, and kept doing it even when they had a career that was more specialized. You can totally maintain it, but all of them that I can think of, their career was focused on one thing. So, maybe they were really good at designing cars and they kept doing everything else. They painted and drew and, designed monsters and characters and all that. And just, they maintained their broad happy art practice, but they made almost all of their money drawing cars, Seems like normal Photoshop behavior. Yeah, it is. It is. What's the last thing you watched and what did you think of it? Shogun. I thought Shogun started really... I didn't really like it first 2 episodes, something like that. I like it now. I think I got better in the middle. I'm hopeful about the ending. Dave McKean is kind of like that maybe, except for the subject. I don't know. I don't know too much about Dave's career outside of comics, so I'm really not too sure. Mizubi says, how do I practice all the fundamentals? This past 2 months, I practiced volume perspective, but not much else. You don't need to practice them all. You can't. Don't worry about it. I know, Mizubi, that you have a strong ardency and sort of frenetic energy for the practice, but I think that in many ways, for you, managing that is going to be one of the biggest parts of your practice. You really want to be able to do everything all the time, it seems. And I think a big thing for you is just going to be accepting and internalizing that you cannot, that it cannot be done. And that's harder. In a sense, wanting to do everything all of the time is the dream of the easy way out, because we just think, all right, well, if I can do that, then I'll be unassailable. If I'm doing everything all of the time, somewhere in there I'm doing the right thing. I couldn't possibly be wrong. And that's the easy way out. We all wish life was that easy. Truth is, you are not going to be able to do everything all of the time. And, the life of as you mature, you realize that that's what life is. You have to choose. And choosing comes with all of the uncertainty and risk that we all fear, subtly and unconsciously. And learning to live with that and forgive yourself for your mistakes in that realm is part of maturing. Thank you, Konstantinos. And good afternoon to you. Gabuda Ichamuda, whose name I love saying. Why do people see art as useless or just as a luxury? Because they're just looking at the product. Artists inherently understand it's not useless and that it's not a luxury because artists have firsthand experience of the experiential benefits of making art. But it's like, I can't think of another example right now, but it's like meditation, where people who have never tried it or had a good experience in there, a lot of the times you couldn't possibly convince them to find it interesting, right? They already, meditation by definition is sort of like, it's about the internal experience of the meditator. So there's very little to communicate to another person about it. There's actually a lot. There's whole corpuses of entire religions that have been around for thousands of years that do it. But outside of that, it's like a person who just doesn't already have an interest, it could be very difficult to pull them in because they just already have this assumption, like you're just sitting there doing nothing or focusing on your breath, if they've heard anything about meditation. Art's the same way, right? They're just like, oh, you're just making a pretty picture, right? And that just is doing a very heavy lift in that assumption. They just couldn't quite imagine the depth of what is actually going on there. Trolls and Scrolls says your hair game is strong. Well, it's just an animal I'm letting live on top of my head at this point. It's not going to last long. I was out earlier today, or not today. We had a 70-degree day a few days ago, and we haven't had many. They've been peeking through here and there. Spring has been very wet and very cold here in New York this year. Unusually so. I feel it's just been clouds, rain, a few sunny days peeking through in between. But I was out for a walk it was only 70, and I found it unbearable. I mean, it was making me too hot, so it's not going to last long. It's not going to last long. The hair because it's like a hat. It's like I'm wearing like a fur hat on my head all the time. Any plans on streams like Nightshade all night? Probably not for a while. I've been doing a lot of design work lately for the project that I'm working on, and I'm also recording it for the next course that I'm making, and that requires a lot of concentration, so I haven't been doing much of that on stream. Once I get that done, then a lot more is possible. Or if I just hit the part of it where I don't really need to do the, once I hit the part of it where I'm not doing the ground floor designs anymore, I'm more just cleaning stuff up, maybe doing some final renders, things like that. That stuff I can do longer streams with, but Tor Opadal says, not sure if you answered this. Any thoughts on spaced repetitions for drawing fundamentals? Heard it might be a more efficient way of learning compared to the normal way of learning. I'm not sure what you mean. What do you mean by spaced repetitions? I mean, there is no optimal way of learning. Not with art. Art is too personal for there to be an optimal way to learn. Probably whatever you mean by spaced repetitions. It's like its value will be in how fun and sort of how fun and enjoyable is it for you, and does it allow you with your temperament to practice more? You know, does it structure the time better for you, or does it keep you from getting stuck in a particular place or level? You know, which it's not going to do that same thing for somebody else. New course? Yeah, I'm working on a new one. It'll be an intro to concept design thing. There'll be a lot of stuff like this in it. It'll be like it's like an introduction. The didactic parts, or the very didactic heavy parts, are like an introduction to the design mindset, you know, how to play with the elements of art and the principles of design. I do plan on covering the principles of design in there as like their own section. It won't be as deep as it could go if it was just a whole course on the principles of design, which I do hope to also make one day. But if I have any hope of really teaching how to think about concept stuff, I will have to cover them in there to at least some level of understanding. So that'll be in there. And yeah, really explain the mindset of like what you're looking for when you do design briefs, when you pick a project, how to frame your project, you know, what kind of intentions you're seeking, things like that. And then the demos, which will be pulled from the work that I'm actually doing for my project. It was very important for me. If I did a course like this, I always thought like, it's got to be real though. Like the thing with concept design courses is that you can't really make them with your work, with commercial work. The companies won't let you. So you wind up doing everything with just kind of unreal stuff that you're not actually committed to. That's typically what's used to demo concept design stuff. And that there's a place for that, but it can't quite go all the way because the teacher doesn't believe it's real, right? The teacher doesn't. It's a complicated thing. But anyway, so when I started doing this project with my friend and we said like, all right, we're going to really try to make it. We're going to go all the way with it. I was like, oh, well, this is the perfect opportunity for me to record my process and actually get something real, you know, something I'm actually trying to do. So those demos will be outside of the just like straight instructional part. Those demos will be for various techniques, classic design techniques, different ways to draw, different ways to think about your designs, diagnostic techniques, things like that. See if anything came up about Tor didn't say anything about spaced repetitions, but Arson said spaced repetition is often used in med school for language learning, usually using flashcards. It's basically a repetition of information right before your brain forgets it. I know someone. I had a student who tried to do that with art stuff. If you're talking about, all right, Arson adds, I used it for cards for your course to remember modeling factors of different primary forms and to better remember your feedback. Interesting. Interesting, Arson. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it helps. It's just, all I'm saying is that for some people that's going to work, that's going to fit right in with their temperament, and other people are going to find that to be sort of an overly left brain burden to some extent, you know? And I can see how that would be skillful for a while, or for some people permanently, but then I can also see, and I think I've experienced with a couple people, how that quickly tips into anxiety when people start getting like, well, I didn't get it all in the flashcards, or, oh, I missed a few weeks of doing my flashcards. Now I forgot it all and I've got to start over from scratch. Or they have some eureka or insight about art that they're like, all right, well, how does that fit on a flashcard or something like that? And then that becomes dominant. Instead of just the wholesome helpfulness of the practice, it just becomes a source of anxiety, and they're just like, all right, well, I need to interrupt my learning and just my flow with drawing to fill out these notes, and I've got to have everything perfectly straight in my head. Like, I'm very sensitive to how in the art community these days, people are just very, 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 very in their heads about making art. They think this whole thing occurs. Even if they wouldn't say it, they're acting, living, practicing implicitly as if the entire artistic process occurs in the stream of rational thought. Like that's where art lives. That art is what they think and say about it, and what other people think and say about it. And nothing could be further from the truth. And very, very few people are connecting with, I made a video about this recently, the fact that, drawings are made by the body, right? They don't connect with their body. They don't trust, and I'm using body in a very couched way, because it implies a sort of the common sense dualism that we're all walking around in, that, we own our body and we're sort of haunting our body. And I don't actually believe that any of that's true. But implicitly, like I said, moment to moment, people don't trust that it's going on anywhere else, and that they can release and let go, and that things will be okay if they do that. And I think that is a shame, to say the least, a terrible shame. And then even when people feel, oh yes, well, of course drawings are made by the body, they're of course they are. They're made by, I use my hands, right? And then they get into this feeling where it's like their mental conceptions about art and practice and training are going to be these leashes that they then put on their body, and they're going to use them to torture their body into submission. Like it becomes very obsessive about muscle memory and things like that. And it's like you couldn't be more detached from your muscles in that sense. It's like you're thinking of muscle memory, this utterly embodied thing. You find yourself thinking and experiencing muscle memory again entirely in your head. You're like, well, muscle memory is me saying I need to draw 800 motorcycles every morning to be able to remember motorcycles, and the I've hit this number. God, I love fucking numbers. And because I hit that number, now it's in my muscle memory, and soon I will be Kim Jong-gi and all of this. It's just like this utterly just backwards, painful, founded in what? Just dealing with art and experiencing it and in this emergent, filmy, final layer that just has the least information, and just ignoring everything that's underneath it, the deep, deep sea that's underneath it. And it's so insidious that a ton of people just hearing me talk about it right now are just automatically cringing away from the concept that they could let go, or that art isn't occurring in the rational mind, that it's not a science. They're just like, instead of hearing me and connecting with it, all they're doing is marshaling a counter argument in their head that certainly I'm not going to give a fuck about. So they're just going to impinge that counter argument onto themselves and continue to remind themselves why they need to keep torturing themselves and beating themselves and hurting themselves, and they're not good enough, and their art's not good enough, and they haven't done all the steps, and they need to do this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And see you in 60 years when you're done with that. Good luck. Yeah, like Arson said. Arson says, I used it when learning Japanese, so I thought I could try, but I learned all the art stuff without flashcards. Yeah, again, I'm not saying don't use the flashcards. I forget the name of the user who had asked about it before. I'm not saying don't use them. I think anything like that can be useful. I'm just advising against what I see happen over and over again with, I think of them as people's little systems, their protocols. Like dude, you're not going to get it unless you're also an art teacher where you work in a kind of structureless way. But dude, it's like, I get it all the time. Like when I'm helping students, I get their protocols, these systems that they've sort of shrink wrapped art around. And again, none of them are bad. They all seem good, but then almost all of them, they're good for a few weeks, and then they stop being good and they just become a source of anxiety. The student cannot stabilize the wholesomeness of the protocol. There's some hole in it. In my opinion, they can't stabilize it because of, as I've said many times here, art is just utterly structureless. So no protocol could possibly hold it. So invariably, they find a point of dissatisfaction in the protocol, and then it tortures them, wondering, is it working? Does it not work? All of this. And I've seen people, go through that, even with stuff like the flashcards. And that's what I'm warning against. Like, just be aware that that if you're not careful and you take it too seriously, you think, well, this really must be the most efficient way to learn art. It's just going to wind up being a source of more pain in the practice, and that's never useful. Just get rid of it. Just get rid of it. There's a similar thing happening in music production circles. I don't doubt it. How participative is your art? That question has been boggling my mind for months now. I don't know what you mean by that, Suplex Mess. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by participative? Neil says, disagree. The only explanation for looking as good as I do is haunting. You do looky good, Neil. You do. I'm looking at your avatar. Is that a German Shepherd? One of those, what's that dog breed that starts with the M? It's like the police dog. Atale says, I have a question. I started learning digital sculpting recently. What should I keep in mind to translate knowledge and concepts from it for my drawing and vice versa? Sorry for reposting. I'm not much of a digital sculptor, so I'm going to refrain from speaking out of my ass on that one. I'm really, if I was much more, if I was even a little more versed in it, I would feel more comfortable, giving you, a little takeaway. But yeah, I don't know. I've done a bit, but I don't do digital sculpting like technically. Sometimes it's in my process, but it's just different for me because I know any problem with the sculpture I could resolve in drawing. I know I don't really need the sculpture. I know I could arrive at a satisfactory answer, maybe not the same answer for perspective, form, lighting, if I just hammered away on the drawing. So that kind of like, it deflates a lot of the need or energy around digital sculpting for me. So it's just, I don't think I'm the right person to ask, Maybe if you asked me on a different day, I'd feel completely different. It's super fun though. And I do think it does inform. They do go back and forth. They do inform each other. But yeah, I don't want to guide your practice there. Very related to philosophical aesthetics. So many people are unaware that they sit on one extreme, mind or body. Letting go too much can also produce an unequally irrational art practice. Torado Wave says, Stephen, do you have any tips on becoming a better speaker? Well, like just for what I'm doing right now, like just speaking extemporaneously, not really. I mean, I never practiced this with intent. I just did it a lot. You know, I've streamed a bunch and all that. I think one of the main things is just getting over you. I don't think you ever get completely over your nerves of speaking, but like reducing it the 80% that it is possible to reduce, I think that's always a good idea for most people. And that, you know, that's just based on having a structure to what you're going to say with public speaking, you know, remembering that everybody who's listening to you everybody wants you to be relaxed when you're talking. So it's okay to relax. Like nobody in the audience wants you sort of, you know, neurotically worried and freaked out or anything like that. And I know that for a lot of people, knowing that it can create the negative feedback loop there. Well, I know they don't want me to be freaked out and I'm freaked out. But for a lot of people, when you frame it that way, it does kind of become freeing. Like if you want to give the audience what they want, right? To give them what they want, just chill a little bit. It's all right. You know, I think that stuff helps. For like presenting in a more formal setting, like presenting projects and things like that, there's more structure that could be given about how to speak well. But I think in that case, it's less about speaking well and more about writing well. Like, what's your content? Like, you're getting used to writing your content, having it tell a story, you know, not lingering for too long, and rehearsing it, you know, practicing it a lot. LS Demon says, isn't your entire course based off that science you just ranted about? No. I mean, it's based off of, form from imagination is based off of, there's only one part of science it's based on, and that's light. I take it as axiomatic in form from imagination that the way someone wants to create form is by, at least to some degree, honoring the way that light creates form in reality. The truth is that you don't actually need to do that. You can actually create form in ways that do not align with the way light creates form in reality as we see it. But that's not what I teach in the course. So the only science that's in that course is that. And no, you know, something like the sort of rigorous training regimens that we were talking about is not at all. I mean, do you have the course? I take it you don't have the course, because the very first video in the course is me begging the students to please not spend more than half their time doing the exercises in the course, and that they should, as they do the course, spend at least half their time doing their own creative images, being happy, going for the dream pictures, maintaining the connection to their base creativity. And if you have the feedback version of the course, then you would see that I leave a huge, I'll take anything anybody gives me in terms of, you know, they turned their textured sphere into this, they turned their toy assignment into this. It's just like utterly open for interpretation. And I really force myself as an instructor to take whatever they gave me in good faith. And really, I bend my structure to work with the assignment that they gave. So no, it's very much more open-ended than the sort of closed-minded A plus B equals C grindy mindset. Fear says, I really like that sentence you've brought up a couple times in your videos now. You are not a ghost haunting yourself. It's really striking to me. It might be something to contemplate. If it's striking you, there's probably something there. Investigate. Investigate. Investigate while drawing. Investigate while not drawing. Investigate while eating, while sitting. Maybe lightly investigate while having a conversation with another person. No need to drift off and disconnect from the conversation, but there's quite a lot to be learned from being in relationship with another person and just lightly inclining the mind in that moment, just for a flash, to sort of a recent morsel that has resonated with the mind, just while they're talking, just for a split second. Just, you are not a ghost haunting yourself. Just, stay with it, balance, but definitely something to investigate. Suplex Mess says, i.e., how people can relate to your work. How can they integrate that world via their feelings felt toward your work? Are they part of it or simply a cold, distant observer? Oh, well, in that sense, no. I mean, I don't, for my personal work, I don't personally think of the audience as a cold, distant observer. I mentioned this in I think it's the last video that came out, or 2 videos ago, is the March Patreon Q&A, and somewhere in there I talk about this in a little bit more depth. But when I'm like really deep in a pencil drawing, one of the things that motivates me the most when I'm like, let's say I'm 50 hours in and I'm like, I'm going to go for another 50, right? This one's going to be 80 to 100 hours or something like that to finish. One of the fuels that I'll plug in at one of those points where there's often an ebb is I will really tune in to what I don't have great words for this. I experience it sort of as a responsibility that I have to the viewer, but in English, the word responsibility has a strong energy, like a valence of a duty, like work, right? Like your work responsibilities, your job duties. But this is like a joyful responsibility, more like the responsibility that you may have to a child. Not to infantilize the audience. I mean that I don't have children, but from, the people in my family who do and stuff like that, they have a lot of responsibilities, but on a good day, when they're not burnt out, those responsibilities are experienced as joyful, compassionate responsibilities. And I feel that way, and I tune into that with the audience. I really feel it in my guts, like anyone who sees this image, I, in a sense, get to drive their brain for a split second, right? Like, to encounter my image either in person, which is pretty rare, or online, they will have to reconstitute the image from the raw sense material, no matter what. If they saw it, they had to do that, right? Even if they scrolled right past it, even if they didn't stop for a second to look at it, their brain still had to rebuild it from scratch to perceive it. And that will, like, I can't tell you how much, for some reason for me, that gives me so much energy. Like, it really is a really compassionate, like, mystical, sort of psychedelic connection that I have to the audience. And even if they will scroll right past it, I consider it a responsibility to, I want their mind to have to constitute a gorgeous image. I don't want to burden their mind with horseshit. If they're going to stitch this thing together, iota by iota in their relationship. I want it to be a sort of luxurious, gorgeous, sort of very haute couture experience. I want it to be incredibly like soft and refined. Like life is suffering for most people day to day, moment to moment. I just want this, like, even if they're not gonna notice it, even if they're not even gonna notice they scroll past my image, I want some part of their mind to be touched by the refinement of this little piece of reality that they had to make. So in that sense, it goes beyond participatory. If I sort of look at that stance radically, it's like it's them. Like the image only exists in them. At that point, I'm like irrelevant, right? It's like anytime somebody sees a picture that I made, it's like I'm not there. And we're all, every moment of every day, we're all walking through holograms in our heads that we're all pretending are not that. And everyone is making all of reality from the ground up, moment to moment to moment to moment. So they made it. In a very real sense, they made my drawing. My drawing doesn't exist on their side of reality unless they sort of remake it in that flash of a second. So it goes beyond participatory. It's sort of a co-creation of the image where we both have a very deep part in manifesting it. And, I don't think about that when I'm picking my day rate. But when I need a surge of energy to finish a picture, I will attune to that, and it will create an upswell of energy and emotion and desire to make the picture as good as I can. And again, that's for my personal work and work that I'm trying to push as far as I can. Usually my pencil drawings. Like something like this, I'm not really gonna quite go there, it could just get a little, it could get a little too broad. But for my personal stuff, yeah, I go there quite often. Oops, sorry, I kicked the microphone. Hey, look, it's Joe. Hey, everybody, I'm very busy today, but I want to check in and say hi. Steve, you're kicking ass. I dig our little ship in the foreground. Hello, Joseph. My dear Joseph, good luck with all your work today. I'm glad you like the ship. Sorry, let me make sure this isn't important. Aki says, writing about the stuff you like talking about has been helpful for me. If I can write it effortlessly, I know I can also speak it. Yes, I should have given that advice too for speaking. It's easy for me, it helps to talk about all these topics because, you see how many videos are on this YouTube. Most of those I write some form of a script beforehand. So I've had to write about this stuff, and that helps clarify your thinking. And when your thinking's clear, it's easier to talk about it, then easier to write about it, Android Theory says, are you doing any in-person events in the near future, such as a workshop or the like? I wouldn't say in the near future, but in the future, yeah. I almost, this year, I was going to try to do, because I've been very interested in doing some in-person stuff. And I was almost going to do that this year, but the financials did not work out. So it had to get pushed. So I wouldn't say in the near future, but I've wanted to do that for a long time. I don't know what it would look like. I don't know if it would be like a workshop, a retreat kind of situation. It's harder when you're doing things completely independent because, you know, when you're working at a school or something like that, you want to do a little kind of workshop or something. You pitch it to the school, they give you a room, some resources, all that. If you're a teacher there, I mean. But when you're independent, I mean, you got to like rent space on your own and all that. Suplex says, can't get a more participatory answer from you than that. Color me psyched too by your words. I'm glad. Thanks for the legit, thoughtful answer. I'm just trying to put focus on that moving boat mind. On that moving boat mind. I'm happy to help. Glad it can get you psyched. Gabuda says, is it possible that artists are tormented the most because the worlds, characters, and situations they create aren't manifested beyond the canvas? No. Well, I mean, it's possible, but I don't think that's mostly what's tormenting artists. I think what is tormenting most artists is a crushing lack of self-esteem. Neil says, I don't want to nitpick your iceberg composition here, but the ship could use a little more scurvy. Yeah, like Joe said, needs lemons. Gotta have citrus on board. I read The Wager by David Gran recently, and ooh, the detailed description of scurvy. Oh, God. It's like, because scurvy is like, I don't quite, I read this many months ago now, but it's like scurvy damages like collagen or something like that. Like it damages some of the base stuff that like holds your body together. So when I read that like scurvy will make old wounds and scars reopen, I had to put the book down. Like that's such like a tour. I'd never even considered that something like that could happen. That's horrible. Travis says, getting at the Mountains of Madness vibes from these almost architectural bergs. I love that. At the Mountains of Madness was the first H.P. Lovecraft I ever read, and what got me into his sturf, and still a favorite. I've listened to it many times in the intervening years to fill long work nights. It's like just the right length. Like you can knock it out in a couple sittings. And it's like not too, it's like the right tone, you know, mood. Nothing too action-packed happens in it. Tequila Lee. All this ice and not a big enough blender for iced coffee. Fuck, iced coffee sounds good. It's too late in the day now, though. Why'd you have to say that? Why'd you have to say that? Do you have any tips on networking with other artists? Yeah, I mean, ow. I mean, the best thing to do is just send them random Instagram DMs that say, hello, sir, I found your work on ArtStation and it's most acceptable. I would like to buy 3 to 5 pieces for my wife's anniversary. The budget is $5,000 each. I am waiting eagerly for your positive reply. I always respond to those. I always send my bank account info. I always become friends with that person. I always meet him and his wife. I always drink cognac while we post up in his tremendous cliffside hacienda. And he shows me the beautiful drawing room in which he has decided to hang my piece, which he bought for more than $5,000. The crackling fire, the expensive cigars. The glances of appreciation, understanding, the unasked for gifts, the night in the guest room. Every time. Now that's how you network, baby. That's how you network. Artists are inherently antisocial. They got into art because they enjoy retreating from society. Not all of them, but a lot of them are. If you're serious about networking, I would advise you go to conventions and to meetups and things like that. you need to catch artists in contexts where they have already decided they're there to open up and they're there to network. Like, look, yes, artists tend to be very antisocial and weird, but almost none of us are antisocial enough and weird enough to go to a convention thinking we're not going to talk to anybody or not wanting to talk to anybody. We're mostly not in that situation. So you go to a place where these people who are usually not that ready to open up and take in new people and are very introverted, they've already done the work on their end, freaking out in the bathroom mirror that morning to be like, no, we're going and we're going to talk to people and there's going to be stuff to do there. It's like they've already done that initial work. Everybody's going in open. It's much easier to connect there. It doesn't just have to be a con, classes are like that. If it's like a public class, it's different if it's a class where, someone needs to take it for their degree, then they could ostensibly be there not wanting to be there, right? But outside of that context, if you're in a class, everybody wanted to be there. They had to choose to take that class. They had to make time in their life for it. And there, more people will be willing to open. That's a little different because there's also going to be some people who are there who really are not interested in the people. They're interested in the class, right? They want to learn the material, get the structure, and they're really hoping not to have to interact too much with other artists and other people. I would say that's an unfortunate sort of closed-mindedness on their part, but that is the case. So in that situation, you have to be ready, okay, half the people here are going to be open and the other half aren't. So if you try to approach somebody and they don't really come off that open, don't get discouraged, just talk to somebody else, right? You're going to find somebody there who is more open to the whole experience. But yeah, at cons, it's more like everybody there is expecting to have to talk to people and wants to make friends, So I would recommend going to those environments. Online, it's very hard. Usually, if it's online, it's I don't know. People seem to have very mixed results with things like Discords and things like that. I haven't tried that, or at least not in the way that a beginner who's looking to network would. But yeah, I've heard very, very mixed things about trying to make sort of friends through Discord and things like that. I know when I did my workshops, which were all through the internet, right? It was we did them on Discord. That was 10 people per class. And there, a lot of them became fast friends and they've stuck together. They've remained really good friends and genuine friends. So that kind of environment can work online. But again, that's a structured, we're all invested in this. They had to pay money to take the class, so they care, that implicitly, because you're all taking class with the same teacher, you all kind of align on viewpoint already. You have something, as weird as it is, it's they have me in common, right? They know, okay, everybody who's in this class kind of either halfway agrees with Steve's teaching or something like that. And we say, oh, well, did you see this video? It's you have something in common, stuff like that, So I think those environments are the ones that you should go for if you want to network. Anxious says, good day, fellow drawers. I don't know why I find that so funny. Hi, Caldas. I am assuming that's, what is that, Portuguese? I'm not going to try to read that in my Spanish voice because it's not Spanish. If the question was about networking, Steve Evo LeBlanc says, in my experience, it was amazing going to more underground life drawing events. Very cool. Met from crazy unknown artists painting in their basements to top industry artists. Very cool. Life drawing is great. That's definitely included on the list of, when I said classes. I don't just mean like college class, or like a community college class that's open to the public. I mean like life drawing. It's also a class. I mean, I actually have it on the to-do list to do a video about the philosophy of life drawing in person, because I think a lot of people these days are missing out on that experience because they're, there's all the reference photos online and things like that. And I'm not saying you need to do it all the time. I haven't been to life drawing in probably over a year now. But I was going pretty regularly before that. I just moved away from a place that had any very nearby. But I've been doing it, I think my first life drawing class I was 15. I was 15 or 16 when I went to my first life drawing class. And I've been doing it regularly ever since. And there's a lot of things that does that drawing from photos doesn't do. It trains a different part of the mind. I think the philosophy is very deep there, actually. Yeah, if you've never tried it, I highly encourage anyone to go for it. Got any tips for controlling hard edges? Put them in the points of highest contrast and don't put them in transitions, form transitions. Actually, you can still roll form with hard edges. You just need to, massage it so that the other aspects of contrast make the hard edges as a group feel like a soft transition, In a sense, managing hard edges is about managing all your other edges, managing soft and medium edges. It's like you need to have the hard edges sitting correctly in a contrast in a hierarchy of edge contrast. So the soft edges should set off the hard edges, and the hard edges should set off the soft edges. And there's no right answer to any of that. It's just feeling your way through and designing them based on the compositional goals of the picture and your guts. Hello, Karim, who says, I'm new here. Kaldas said, your works are very impressive. Congratulations. Thank you for the translation, Angel, and thank you, Kaldas. FKTNM says, Stephen, I'm a month and a half into the largest pencil drawing, 19 by 24, nice, I've ever attempted. I'm approaching the part where I need to start darkening, but I'm stressing about what lead softness, and then it cuts off. And do we have another message from FKTM? Okay, I take it then that FKTNM means what lead softness to use. You don't have to stress about it. You could probably use the pencil that you're already using. I do very broad images with one hardness. Let me fall off. This is my most recent pencil drawing from a few weeks ago. Whoops, almost opened it with, let me open the censored version, sorry. Good thing I caught that. Where would that be? I forget where the censored version is. Give me a second. Where would I have that? Maybe I only have the glazed version censored. I think that is the case. I think this one's pretty big, but nope, nope, that's censored. So this drawing, this is my most recent pencil drawing. I did this all with just one HB 0.5 mechanical pencil. I didn't use anything else for the whole thing. And these dark areas, like up here on this leg, this is a little low res, sorry. But on the paper, these dark areas, these dark accents, like behind the butt here, some of these very dark ambient occlusions on the inside of the arm, this stuff, I mean, they are black, 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 black. I mean, they are dark. Stuff up here in the top left and top right gets very, very dark. All just one pencil. Just the 0.5 mechanical HB pencil. So you don't need to use all sorts of different hardnesses if you don't like it. You just use your hand pressure and you get used to applying your hand pressure. Sometimes you need to be a little bit more patient, but you don't need to stress. Just about anything will do. And I personally prefer working that way. That drawing was a really extreme case where I really only used the one. Usually, I use two. I rarely ever use more than two hardnesses in a finished pencil drawing. It's an HB and then maybe one really dark pencil, like a 14B. But I actually don't use that for large, I don't tend to wind up using that for large dark areas. I use that just for the small, darkest dark accents. I anchor those as this velvet, pure black. A big area that needs to get much darker, I would actually, most of the time, I wind up going with the HB for that because I find mixing, and maybe other people have more control of this. I've never quite managed to iron this out of my process, but if I mix too many hardnesses, I find it leaves artifacts. I find that their glares and their grain overlap strangely, and they conflict with each other in the finish. And if I just use one hardness, if I can push that through, I get this like flawless, shiny velvet surface to the drawing. And I like that. I really like that feeling. It also, it's not just a nice surface. You can't really tell in the scan, but like, it's a shame, no one really sees my drawings in person, but it's like the fact that the surface is so flat makes some of the intentional moments of trying to push depth, like a light area sitting on a dark background, it looks really weirdly 3D. It really feels really atmospheric and depthy, in my opinion. Like it looks really nice because the materials abutting each other is not giving the mind and the eye these cues that there's anything but the illusion. Like the surface has been homogenized to a flat effect that disappears in perception. And it's just like the reality of the illusion that is being created. And it's like, that shit's worth spending 100 hours on. It's really cool. I like it a lot. But I wouldn't quite be able to get that if I started mixing too many hardnesses. Yeah, FKTNM says, wow, so lead softness is not necessary at all then. Interesting, thank you. No, you can totally, people are just very not used to using the full range of their hand pressure. You know, not everyone needs to do it. Some people don't like it. It hurts their hand. I got used to it, so I can finish a whole drawing with the one lead because I'm very used to using the whole range of my hand. A really big area that I need to make really dark, sure, my hand will ache after a while because you're just pressing really hard. But in like a dark accent, in like a really dark accent, like when I'm darkening a little dark like this, like a dark area or something like that, I will press so hard that the lead will break and shoot across the room. And that's not an accident. That's like a sign for me that I'm pressing hard enough. Like, like that lets me know, like, all right, we're doing it. There too, like I'm going like this terminator on this arm to make this feel very dimensional. That terminator area, those terminator slashes on the arm are like, they're pure black on the drawing. They're jet black. And then I just model out of them very sensitively to roll them. Hello, Majkan. Cheka XL says, hello, how to live when art does not bring income. They say to find a normal job. If the art is not bringing income, it's not going to feed you. So you may need to get a normal job. I mean, it's probably just the end of it. You probably do need to get a normal job. I mean, if you're not able to bring in commissions yet or sell your work, hopefully it'll come in the future. But for now, you need to eat, right? Just to be perfectly honest about art, because people don't talk about this that much, and I think it's important to talk about it. And I tend to not be, I tend to be, and I try to not be judgmental about any of this. But just so you know, this is an option. Many of history's great artists were supported by a rich person. You know, they had a patron, and often just one or a couple. We don't really have that relationship anymore. But, you know, there's no nice way to say it, or like there's no way that in our culture doesn't feel kind of cringy about it, but it's like the amount of time that it takes to make art, and the fact that making art very much relies on being at least somewhat easeful in life, not having a crushing amount of pressure. Many great artists spent periods supported by people, by their parents, by a partner, you know, a husband or a wife who can support them while they just kind of make their art and see what happens. That's just the way things have been in art. So if there's an option like that for you, that's, you know, a possible path. That's a fortunate position to be in, but I just want to point out that that's not an unusual one. That's very common through art history. I mean, if you crack open an art history book, for the most part, you are reading the endeavors of people who had quite privileged lives. You know, They didn't have all that much to worry about on an existential level. I mean, even Michelangelo was taken in by the Medicis and made their golden boy when he was like 13 or something like that. You know, Leonardo da Vinci is effete landed gentry, basically. Like, it's just, you know, it's the way it is. All right, everybody, I'm going to have to get going here soon. I really only did this one iceberg when I thought I would do two, but that's okay. I haven't been on for a while, and I really just kind of wanted to chat and say hi. I'll keep going for a bit longer, but if you had any questions that you wanted to ask, now would be the time before I pack it in. Pack it up, pack it in. Let me begin. The Prodigy Shot says, hey, Stephen, I started an anatomy class and the format is learning skeleton proportions, then individual muscle groups each week leading up to putting the full body together. Do you have another strat? No, that's good. That's perfectly good. That's how I learned it. When I studied with Ray Bustos, I did a lot of things. Before I studied with Ray, I familiarized myself by using several books. You know, I copied Bridgman and read through Bridgman. I wouldn't say I recommend that for everybody. I already had a sense of the dynamics of the body, so I think I got something out of Bridgman. But if I didn't have that, I think it would have been more confusing than useful. I read Elliot Goldfinger's anatomy book, which is a reference book. You're not supposed to read it front to back. You're supposed to look up individual muscles when you have a question. I just sat there and read it on the subway from cover to cover and tried to remember as much as I could. And I copied a bunch of the diagrams. And there's a book by... There's like an anatomy coloring book by someone called Rubens, I think it is, Rubins. I had that and I did some basic study with that. I looked at the labels and I made sure, I started trying to be like, all right, that's this muscle, this muscle, this muscle. So I had a familiarity there, but even that I would say was a pretty basic familiarity. And then I would say the level of being able to name muscles was at the level of someone who works out a lot, like a bodybuilder would be able to say, well, those are my lats, those are my tris, that's my teres major, that's my bicep, that's my tricep, it's got 3 heads. It was a pretty basic, from the Rubens book. The Goldfinger book was much more in-depth. And then when I studied with Ray, we did basically that. We started with sculpting the skeleton. Learning the skeleton inside out, being taught didactically how the skeleton was structured. And we sculpted it. And then I don't think I sculpted the muscles the way that I went through the course, the way that I took his classes. I think I just sculpted the skeleton, and then I drew the muscles. And we did that. We had the skeleton down pat first, and then we learned the muscle groups, just as you said. We learned them in groups. We did learn all the individual muscles, but we learned them in groups, and we did careful study of each separately, and we did écorché diagrams. And we did not draw we drew the figure. We actually had figure models come into class, but we'd only draw one part of them. We didn't draw the full figure until the very end of class. So we would have a live model come in, but we would only draw the part of them we were learning that week. So we'd draw their arms, we'd draw their legs, we'd draw their front of their torso, back of their torso, things like that. Warrington says, how do you choose lighting situations? I find myself putting the light in the same direction most of the time. That's just a habit that you need to break out of. I mean, the light, you know, basically everything that we see is a triangulation between three things: light source, subject, and viewer. So if you put the light in the same place over and over again, you're removing like a third of the considerations about the evident appearance of an object. So you just gotta, in a sense, it's like keeping the light in the same place is a good training period if you don't do it forever, because you sort of remove that, or you still have to deal with it, but you're not adding so many variables, right? So you can get comfortable with one light direction and then just ask questions about the relationship of subject to viewer. But at some point, yeah, you've got to start assessing the movement of the light. It's important. I mean, it controls mood. Like, just because I already have this open, like the fact that this guy is sort of, I think, the fact that this creature is somewhat underlit is, you know, like on this arm, that's dark, that's light, right? This is facing more towards the ground. This is facing more upwards, so it feels like the light is coming from somewhere below. I think that contributes to his creepiness. You know, just that being a more unusual lighting situation inclines the mind of the viewer towards this is unusual. So it's just a big way to control mood, big mood, as they say. Good day, Majkan. Daryl says, I'm getting the same homogeneous effect on a smaller pencil drawing I'm doing with a 0.3 mechanical pencil. The areas where things fall into flat shadow look scarily three-dimensional. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I'm sure people who use more than one hardness have found a way to get that same feeling. I've just never quite been able to. And that I won't sacrifice everything for that effect, right? There's definitely situations and certain compositions where I'm just like, all right, well, it'd be crazy to not use a bigger dark for this area, right? Like, what if you're working on what if that 18 by 24 that the other questioner was talking about, what if half the sheet needs to basically be pure undifferentiated black? Well, yeah, maybe it's time to take out the 14B, right? Or even another medium completely, like charcoal or something like that. I wouldn't do that. Charcoal's, you know, yeah, you put it down. Good luck moving the paper. Like, now it's going to go all over the goddamn place. But I'm a hater of charcoal. I don't like it. But short of huge situations like that, like, yeah, you can just do so much with the one, and you get a nice effect from it. Aki says, pressing that hard sometimes feels very scary, like I'm going to ruin the drawing and there is no way back because it's too dark and non-erasable. For that, I always say, use excellent paper. It's one of the things I bring up over and over again in Form for Imagination. When people start submitting assignments, they start submitting on sketchbook paper, and I tell them basically right away, I tell them, like, even though this is a rendering of a sphere, this is not a sketch. This is a finished drawing of a sphere that I'm asking of the person. So don't do it on sketchbook paper. I tell people, get on the best stock you're used to or can find as fast as possible. Get on expensive paper. And the best thing about expensive paper, it's not that any effects on some sketchbook papers, some cheap papers, you can basically get any surface effect that you can get on high quality finished paper. What's different is that you cannot abuse cheap paper. It falls apart when you erase. Really good stock, I can grind the pencil into the paper, and as long as I did not literally dent the paper, I can usually erase that back to like 98% white. White enough that no viewer would ever really notice the difference. And it'll lift clean. And I can even scrape the paper. And because it's so thick, I mean like scrape it with a knife. I can scrape the paper, and because it's so thick, what's underneath the scraped surface is almost like just more of the same surface tooth. It's like the same quality through the stock. So I can just draw on that scraped surface again the same way that I did on the raw unblemished paper. So those are the benefits of working on really good stock. It's not going to open the door to any surface final effects that are locked to all sketchbook papers, but it will open up much more of your process because you can be more freewheeling and you can make more mistakes. And, you know, in the case of somebody who is using a cheap paper that you really can't erase on, that tears when you erase, there's a lot of drawing effects that are done by erasing. You know, there's a lot of really interesting, fun, and beautiful effects that you get with the eraser, using the eraser as a drawing implement. So if you're on one of those papers where you can't really erase at all without tearing the paper, then you're really locking off a lot of drawing possibilities. I draw with the eraser all the time when I draw. Lila says, is studying Bridgman for shape design worth it? I just find his way of designing shapes really dynamic and intriguing. It's to taste. For my money, Bridgman was very good at designing shapes, but I think Frazetta was as good or better. And Frazetta's more clear for the most part. So for me, I'd like study some Frazetta paintings. That's what I would say. There's just so much in Bridgman that it's just like, what is happening? What is that? If you don't already know the anatomy, it's really hard to tell what he was alluding to in a lot of the drawings. And they're very crude, you know, they're reproduced very poorly, you know. They're like bit maps of photos of giant charcoal drawings that he did like 15 feet tall and stuff like that. So there's so many. They're just so odd. I don't know. I really don't know if I would recommend Bridgman to anyone who doesn't already have a firm grasp on anatomy and form. Daryl says, while doing your recent pencil drawing, did you have a strict portion of time set for that versus working on the comic designs? Or did you just pick whichever you felt like on each day? When I was getting through that one, I really needed the pencil drawing as a medicine. You know, I needed that little drop of tincture in the mix. So I was mostly just doing that. And that aligned, if I remember correctly, a lot of that aligned anyway with some rewrites that we were doing to the script for the comic. We had decided to restructure a bunch of Act 3, and we were needing to sit down and sort of do the beat sheet for that. So there was sort of like a nice natural alignment there with like a gap and like, well, maybe I don't make so much art when we're not 100% sure how much of this is going to stay in there. And also just me really needing it for me. So I mostly just did that. Most of the weeks that I worked on it, yeah, my day-to-day there was really just I would do the pencil drawing for like 3 to 4 hours a day. I would stream, and I would... actually, I don't think I was streaming. I think I was taking a break from that. I would just do the pencil drawing. In terms of work, obviously I had, life stuff to do, but I would just do feedback and work on the pencil drawing and wrap up some other stuff that I had to do, like AI stuff that I had to do and things like that. I'm working on a project and have a larger pencil drawing going, and I've been working on one for 1 week and an other. I'm having trouble reading now. I've been talking a lot. Have a larger pencil drawing going, and you're working on a project. And I've been working on one for 1 week and another week whenever I feel like, but I'm feeling a slight need for structure. Week to week could work. I mean, if it's not working for you, then maybe there's some adjustment of the knobs needed there. But it depends what appetite you have. When I did that one, I really had the appetite. I had the need for just the sinking in deep work of just, like an archaeologist scratching out a finished pencil drawing for many, many hours. I had a deep need for that. So even if I had more stuff going on, I probably would have prioritized that over everything else. There is when you've got multiple stuff going on, sometimes the fastest way to get through things is to just say, I'm just doing this one until it's done. Like that'll allow me to just build momentum and concentration and live within the conceptual model of this assignment, of this task that I need to do, and not have to switch between tasks so much and readopt these different models. So even though I have a lot on my plate, in a sense, it's like, it might be that it's going to get done fastest if you just buckle down on one and augur it with your mind until it's finished and then move on to the next thing. Not all the time. And sometimes you can't do that because, there's deadlines and all, deadlines that are restricting you and things like that. But sometimes that's the fastest way, rather than sort of swinging back and forth on things. No, Birkeland, thank you so much. The beard is looking flawless today. It's going. It's on my face because it is pure laziness. I'm just so lazy to. I just cleaned the whole apartment over the weekend. I did a bit of spring cleaning, and I thought, I'll shave my. I had thought before I started, I was like, I'll shave my beard, and then I forgot to do it, and then later. Once I was done, I was like, I got to shave my beard. And I was like, I just cleaned the bathroom. It's spotless now. When I shaved my beard, it's like, it all goes flying everywhere. I was like, forget it. Like, I'm too lazy to clean it up, So I'm just like, I'll keep it on my face instead of all over the bathroom. Goodbye, Renola. Goodbye, Tobias. It will be saved as a VOD. It always is. Hello, Stratovolcano. You caught me live, but I'm leaving soon. Maybe Frazetta's bit about studying Bridgman to get good was a joke about how weird Bridgman actually is. Maybe. I don't know. I don't doubt that he copied the Bridgman book in what he says he did it in a day, right? It's like, I don't doubt it. I don't see how much of an impact that really could have had, A day's not really enough to internalize that broad of a concept. But also, Frazetta was a freak and didn't really need anybody's help. So it really doesn't matter what he did or didn't do. Frazetta was going to be Frazetta. Some people are just, freaks. Castaway look fitting properly. That's true. It fits very well with the material here. Fits very well with the material. MF says, how is the comic going? It's hard. I mean, I'm having fun doing a lot of the process, but we have the whole script now, which was a big milestone. We actually have an entire draft from beginning to end for the script, which is just great. I mean, that's hard to do. Yeah, big props to Joe for his work there. And we've done, we've been doing a lot of viz dev. I've done a lot of drawings. And I feel like now I'm crossing the threshold into having a very solid sense of the design language, which is another big milestone. I still have a lot of viz dev to do. It's a big story. Viz dev takes a long time. But the comic itself, like drawing panels, haven't done it yet. Haven't done it yet. But the architecture is there, We know what's in the panels. The script is there. Artsy Artifact donates $10. Thank you so much, Artsy Artifacts. No question today. Hope all is well with everyone. Thanks for the stream, Stephen. That is very kind. Thank you so much. That is very, very kind. All is well with me. Damn, all is well. I hope everything is well with everybody else. Thank you for the $10. I really appreciate it. I'll like it. Right? It gives me a chance to like it. Boom. I liked it. I'm a liker. I'm a liker. I liked it. What's the weather right now? Should I go for a run now after stream? Where's my weather at? I have hit 4 hours of working. Good time for a break. Not bad. 59, sunny, windy. I got to see how bad that wind is. Maybe I'll go for a run now. Goodbye, Aki. Have a good night. Autumn Rose says, shout out to all the peeps sticking through their long-term projects. Shout out. I've got an animation baking since February, says Autumn. Is that how that works? I don't know enough about 3D. That's crazy. Leela says, man, I have a long-term personal project I really need to finish. Just do it. Just do it. Just do it. Know it'll have problems. Move on to the next one. Do it, on to the next. Do it, on to the next. Steven, I want to do comics, but I'm really new to it. I don't have good enough skills. What do you think is better? Throwing yourself into a big project from the start and try to learn that way, or... Oh, there it is. Or first I should take baby steps and creating 6-page comics. I mean, if you really want to do comics, then, I mean, creating a 6-page comic is doing comics, If you have a specific big project that you love, that like you've been excited about for a long time, my gut is to say do that, because that energy is worth a lot, right? Like you can learn on the job. Like just don't have unrealistic expectations. People are so burdened by their unrealistic expectations. It's like, yeah, it's your first one. It's not going to come out perfect. You're not going to get rich. It's not going to become world famous or something. It's still worth making. Like it's on the path for you for developing your ability, figuring out the process for yourself. Like there's every reason to do it anyway, right? It doesn't need to explode into a cultural phenomenon. That stuff is beyond your control no matter what. No matter what. I mean, Jesus, you've never found out that one of your favorite artists, you've never had this experience? One of your favorite artists, they mentioned one day like, oh yeah, that time 10 years ago when I put all this time and effort into this huge thing that didn't really go anywhere. You've never caught that? That happens to even the best artists in the world all the time. So even if you had their skill, even if you had their audience, even if you had all their preparation, it's just not under your control if something's successful or something like that. So for me, if you have a big thing already in mind that you love and excites you, that energy is so valuable and it's hard to fake with something else. So it's probably worth going in that direction. If you don't have that, if you don't already have something big like that, this meatball hanging out in your mind, then 6-page comic or 300-page comic, it's still comics. Like, go for the 6-page one. What's the problem? Thank you, Travis. Have a good night. Goodbye. How many open projects do you have at most? It depends what you mean by projects. Like, there's like running my YouTube and my business and my course and working on something new. It's like, if you count all the things that I rotate into my day-to-day, I've got like 6 right now. You know, I do my YouTube. I run my course. You know, I do my feedback for my course. I'm doing the viz dev for this comic project. I'm writing the syllabus for and designing and doing the scripts for the course that will be made out of this content and sort of structuring all of that. So I'm working on the course. And on top of that, I also try to run my personal art practice, which I consider a lifelong project, right? And a lot of those things overlap and dovetail with each other, but that's 5 just on a first blush. And, you know, I do other stuff with my life too. You know, I have all these personal things, you know, I get exercise and I like to spend a lot of time in meditation, and I, you know, try to cook my food as much as I can. And, you know, there's all these other things to be done in life too. So I have a lot going, you know. I'm saying that because, like, you know, exercising, you know, if you're running and stuff like that and tracking, like, all right, what was my last 10K time? You know, like, that feels like a project. You know, I do work in my meditation sessions. You know, I'm doing stuff in there. That feels like an ongoing life project. So there's just this flow of things that I'm trying to have deepening engagement with. And I guess I don't think of them as like, oh, I have all these open loops going or anything like that. I've just, I try to develop my ability to, whenever I sit down to any of them, I'm just with that one now. You know, I'm not thinking about the other ones. I'm just, if I can be with it, it doesn't matter how many open loops I've got going or how many other projects I have, you know, it's just, here I am. I'm doing this one now. I guess that sounds slightly contradictory to, well, it's not contradictory. I was just saying that sometimes things may get done faster if you just do the one and you laser focus on it. But I in my life and with the situation that I'm in, I don't really prioritize speed, efficiency, you know, productivity widgets, things like that. So I'm not super concerned with that. I have quite a bit of tolerance for sort of lossy inefficiency in my life, as long as it feels good. You know, I'm trying to have a good life. You know, I'm trying to be here and enjoy things as they go instead of casting my happiness far out into the future. So. Adam Strawberry says, hey, Stephen, just wanted to say that your videos have been really helpful for me as of late. Much love, man. Thank you, Adam. It's very heartening to hear that. I'm happy to help. It means a lot to me, really. It really does. Shady on Fire says, Stephen, thanks for the stream. I had a blast sketching along. I love it. Thank you for being here, Chady. Goodbye, Suplex. Goodbye, Stratovolcano. Goodbye, Daryl. Goodbye, Autumn Rose. Goodbye, Orange Gordon. Goodbye, Leela. Goodbye, everyone. Autumn says, I've actually been thinking about drawing my story instead of writing it down first, like storyboard style, quick and messy, so no big time investment. I haven't committed to it, though. Isn't that how the mangakas work? The mangakas. I think that's a well-attested to working process. They have some name for it. I forget what it is, but I feel like I saw some documentary once where it's like they're doing like they write the script as it's like the script and these small storyboard pages that are the layout of the comic, like showing the flow of panels, like that is the script. Someone who knows much more. I don't actually follow manga. I'm not a big manga fan, so anyone who knows more about manga could correct me there if I'm misinterpreting what they're doing there. Thanks for answering, Steven. Yes, I definitely have a big project, comic I want to do, but it's fear that plays games inside my head. So you saying these things motivates me so much. Thank you. Happy to help, Vincent. Yeah, just remember, like, it's not weird. It's not weird to think that your first attempt at something like this, your first release, right? Like, forget attempt. Like, I finished it. I made the comic. It's not weird to think when this is your first one that it might suck. Ooh, so scary. It's like, is that surprising? No, it's your first one. How long have you been doing this? I mean, it's not scary to think that it'll have problems, that it won't live up to these lofty expectations. That's not weird. It's the opposite. The position that most people tend to feel, where the first time you show up, it should be the best. Like, it better be berserker. Fuck yourself, right? Like, that's weird. That is weird. That's the weird position. That's irrational. That makes no sense. That is a strange way to conceive of yourself and to treat yourself. So just, iron that out. Any thoughts on working with black and white values, then coloring with digital? There's so many things you can do, and just a little time on YouTube, you'll find like so many different ways to do it. People do it with overlay layers, color layers, gradient maps. You can use selective color in Photoshop. Like, there's all these different ways to nudge. The key thing is that you're probably going to have to mix them all, right? And one that I always like to mention that people seem to miss, because there's all these tricks, right? All these blending modes, layer modes, adjustment layers. People forget, have you ever tried you have the black and white base. Have you ever just tried on a normal layer, just painting in color on top of it? That actually has quite a nice effect. You're just, you've got the value underneath, and you're adding, let's say, a yellow into this value plan, and you just, with your eye, you're like, is the yellow that I just put down, is it brighter or darker or the same value than the gray field that I just laid it into from my value plan? And you just try to make it the same value, and then go to the next shape, same value, go to the next shape, same value. I did a painting a long time ago. God, do I have it? I don't think I would have it. I actually think that painting would be nowhere on the internet. Okay, well, there's the head. It used to be my profile photo for some things, so I have the head, but the full body I don't have. I don't think that's anywhere on the internet. But I'll just show the head. You won't be able to tell much, but I did this painting many, many, many years ago. I think this was probably 20. This has got to be almost 10 years old now, 2013, 14, 15, something like that. But this one, I did it that way. This was painted completely in black and white, in gray values, and then I colorized it by just, I took a normal layer and I just went spot to spot, spot to spot, spot to spot, and I just laid color over the black and white. Ain't that glaze effect? Not if you're talking about glazing in oil painting, it's not quite the same thing, because when you glaze in oils, the paint is truly transparent. This technique, you're laying opaque or semi-opaque, but it's just a normal color layer. You are destroying your values underneath. You're just painting with opaque splotches of color, but you're just matching it so that they don't leap above or sink below the value plan that you had underneath. There was a whole figure under this here, but I don't have this painting on. This is trapped on some old computer somewhere, so. All right, everybody. Looks like I got to everybody's questions. So I'm going to hop off. Take care, everyone. That's crazy. Is that with reference? Not direct reference. I mean, this is a deity. It's been a long time. This is Ragda? Let me get that right. Ragda or Bogda? Forgetting the name. Well, this is Rangda. This is Rangda. So there, I had this was a design. There was this. This is a pre-established design, but I didn't have a direct reference. But whenever I was confused, I could go look at mass. I wish I had the whole body, because the whole body is just like Rangda is usually just feathers all the way down. I designed like a whole creepy body for him, but I don't have the painting. All right, everybody. Take care, everyone. Happy drawing, and I will see you all very soon, I am sure. Mr. Sparkle says, Master, please don't go. I'm not ready yet. You are ready. You'll have to be ready, because I'm going right now.